What happens when a mafia boss accustomed to silence and fear tries to humiliate a simple waitress? He leans back in the exclusive restaurant, a cruel smile on his face, and insults her in rapid, fluent Italian, assuming she's just another invisible girl. But he's wrong. The waitress stops her body going still before she lifts her head. In an accent more aristocratic than his own, she replies, slicing through the arrogance with a perfect, deadly comeback. The most feared man in the city has just made the biggest mistake of his life, and he's about to find out that his waitress is anything but simple. The Trattoria Caruso was a temple of quiet luxury in Boston's North End. A place where old money and new power came to dine under muted chandeliers, their conversations buffered by thick carpets and thicker walls. Anna Reed for 5 years had been its most invisible asset. She was pale, quiet, and efficient. Her brown hair always pulled back in a severe bun. Her movements precise. She was the one who refilled water glasses without being seen, who replaced silverware with the silence of a passing shadow. Her life was a carefully constructed fortress of mundanity. An apartment with 2 locks, a bus route, she varied every week, and a job that required her to be forgettable. For 5 years, this anonymity had been her shield. Tonight, that shield was about to shatter. He arrived at 8. The restaurant's owner, Mr. Henderson, had been pacing anxiously all evening, and the air crackled with a tension that had nothing to do with the thunderstorm brewing outside. When the door opened, a hush fell. It wasn't just a quiet, it was a vacuum, as if the air had been sucked from the room. 4 men entered. 3 were broad-shouldered, wearing suits that cost more than Anna's annual salary, their eyes scanning the room with a cold, professional detachment. The man in the center, however, moved with a different kind of energy. He was tall, dressed in a black, bespoke suit over a deep burgundy shirt, unbuttoned at the collar. His black hair was meticulously styled, and his face was all sharp angles and severe beauty. This was Dante Salvatore, the capo of the Salvatore family. His name was only ever whispered, usually in relation to a missing rival or a new building he'd acquired. They were seated at the best table 12 in the elevated alcove. It was unfortunately Anna's section. "Anna, you're up," her manager Paul hissed, his face pale. "Just don't make eye contact. Be quick." Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. She wasn't afraid of rude customers. She was afraid of recognition. She had spent 5 years running from men exactly like this. She smoothed her apron, picked up the heavy silver water pitcher, and approached the table. She poured the water, her eyes fixed on the flow of liquid into the crystal glasses. She could feel his gaze on her, hot and analytical. "The lady will handle our orders, Paul," Dante said, his voice a low rumble. He didn't look at the manager. He was watching Anna. Paul practically bowed and skewered away. "We'll start with the 98 Brunello," Dante said, not looking at the menu. He gestured to his consigliere, an older silver-haired man named Marcus. "And my men will have whatever steak you're serving." "And for you, sir?" Anna asked, her voice a practiced, soft monotone. Dante's eyes finally met hers. They were a startling, cold gray. "I'll decide after the wine." She retrieved the bottle from the cellar, her hand shaking so slightly it was almost imperceptible. This was the test, the presentation. She returned, presented the label to Dante, who nodded impatiently. She cut the foil, inserted the corkscrew, and began to pull. The cork was dry. It resisted, then split with a faint crack. Anna froze. A tiny piece of cork, no bigger than a fingernail, crumbled and fell onto the pristine white tablecloth. It was a minor recoverable error, but at this table it was a sin. The soldiers at the table tensed. Marcus sighed, annoyed. Dante Salvatore, however, simply watched the small, dark stain of the wine on the cork fragment. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face. He leaned back, speaking to Marcus in a fluid northern Italian dialect, the dialect of power. What incompetence! Anna's blood ran cold. He continued, his voice dripping with aristocratic disdain, gesturing dismissively at her. Look at this clumsy little servant girl. I bet she doesn't understand a word we're saying. She probably doesn't even know who we are. One of his men chuckled. A low, guttural sound. Anna stood paralyzed. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to drop the bottle, and flee. This was the language of her childhood. The language of her nightmares, the language of the men who had burned her world to the ground. She had not spoken it, not heard it spoken with this casual cruelty in 5 years. He had called her a clumsy servant girl. He had mocked her. The fear in her chest solidified, crystallized, and then for the first time in half a decade, it turned white hot. It became rage. Her trembling stopped. Her hand became rock steady. She finished pouring a perfect measure of the Brunello into Dante's glass. Then she placed the bottle gently on the table. She did not retreat. She did not look down. She lifted her chin and met Dante Salvatore's cold gray eyes. Her voice, when it came out, was not the soft monotone of Anna Reed. It was clear, sharp, and resonant, laced with the flawless, educated accent of a Florentine aristocrat, an accent purer than his own. She said, her voice dangerously quiet. Incompetence is judging a book by its cover, sir. The chuckling stopped instantly. Marcus's head snapped up. Anna held Dante's gaze, the world narrowing to the space between them. She continued, each word a perfectly enunciated dagger. And clumsiness is speaking aloud, thinking no one understands. Some of us understand all too well. The silence that followed was no longer a vacuum. It was a loaded bomb. Dante Salvatore's arrogant smirk vanished, replaced by a stillness so profound it was terrifying. His eyes narrowed, the gray turning to slate. He hadn't just been understood. He had been challenged. He had been rebuked by a waitress in his own language. Who? He whispered the single English word, sounding foreign and harsh. The hell are you? The tension at the table was thick enough to cut. Dante's men, his shadows, looked confused. They had understood the insult, but their boss's reaction was new. He wasn't angry. He was fixated. His gaze was no longer analytical. It was predatory. Anna's bravado evaporated, leaving the cold, familiar dread. What had she done? She had broken the first rule of survival. Be invisible. I apologize, sir. That was inappropriate, she stammered, reverting to her English waitress persona. No. Dante said, his voice still a low rumble. He raised a hand, a signal that stopped Marcus from intervening. He leaned forward, speaking in Italian once more. You spoke. Now finish the thought. Who are you who speaks like a princess but serves my wine? I studied. Anna lied, her heart pounding a desperate rhythm. Art history. I spent a year in Florence. Please, I meant no disrespect. Dante studied her, his eyes tracing her features as if seeing her for the first time. He saw the cheap polyester uniform, the worn-out shoes, and the plain, unadorned face. But he also saw the fine, straight line of her nose, the proud set of her jaw, and the eyes. Her eyes were not the eyes of a servant. They were old, haunted, and right now they were defiant. Art history, he repeated, tasting the words. He swirled the wine in his glass, the deep red catching the light. An art student from Boston. And you picked up that accent? The accent of the Vea Nobler. Unlikely. He motioned to the chair at his table. Sit. Sir, I can't. I'm working. You are, he corrected. No longer working. You are having a conversation. Sit. Anna looked frantically toward her manager, who was watching from across the room, his face ashen. He gave a sharp, terrified nod. Do it. Her legs felt like lead as she pulled out the heavy wooden chair and sat perching on the edge. His men watched her, their faces unreadable granite. Your name, Dante, commanded. Anna Reed. He nodded to Marcus, who subtly typed the name into his phone under the table. Anna Reed Dante mused. It's a plain name. It doesn't suit your Italian. What was your family name before Anna Reed? That is my name, she insisted, her voice trembling. You're lying, he said, not with anger, but with simple, cold certainty. He took a sip of the wine. The cork you broke. It's a 1998, a difficult year in Montino. But this vineyard, Caruso, they use a reinforced cork. You knew that. You knew it would be dry, but you also knew it wouldn't break apart. You split it, but you didn't shatter it. You knew exactly how to handle it. You didn't just study. You were raised with this. Anna said nothing. She was trapped. Every word he spoke confirmed her terror. He didn't just see her. He dissected her. Who are you hiding from Anna Reed? He asked, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Because whoever they are, I think I'm much, much worse. A vibration from Marcus's phone. The conciliary leaned in and whispered in Dante's ear. The name is clean. Too clean. Social security number issued 5 years ago. No driver's license until then. No credit history, no family. She's a ghost. Dante's eyes lit with a dark, dangerous intrigue. A ghost. He loved puzzles. He stood abruptly. The entire table rose with him. We're leaving. He threw a black credit card on the table. For the bottle and for the inconvenience. He turned to Anna, who was still frozen in the chair. Mr. Henderson, he called out, and the owner nearly ran to the table. Your waitress, Anna. She's done for the night. Of course, Mr. Salvatore. Anything. No, Anna said, standing up. I need my job. Dante smiled, a chilling expression devoid of warmth. You don't have a job, Cara. You have my attention. Leo, wait with her. Make sure she gets home safe. I want her address. One of his soldiers, a man named Leo, with watchful eyes, nodded. Anna's blood turned to ice. This was it. This was how it ended. They would walk her home, and she would disappear into the trunk of a black sedan. She spent the next hour in a fog of terror cleaning the staff room, her hands shaking so violently she dropped a glass. She delayed, prayed, tried to think of an escape. But when she finally walked out the restaurant's back door into the rain-sicked alley, Leo was there, leaning against the brick wall, an umbrella in his hand. He didn't look threatening. He looked patient. Miss Reed, I can get home myself. I'm afraid I have to insist, he said, his voice polite. The walk to her apartment was the longest 10 minutes of her life. She lived 3 blocks away in a small third-floor walk-up. He held the umbrella, saying nothing, his presence a suffocating weight. He was her executioner, and he was being polite. At her building's door, she fumbled with her keys. Here, he said, taking them and opening the main door. You don't need to come up. My orders are to see you to your door, ma'am. Mr. Salvatore is very particular. He followed her up the creaking stairs at her apartment door, 3B. She held out her hand for the keys. He placed them in her palm. Thank you, she whispered, her voice. Good night. Good night, Miss Reed. He turned and walked away. She waited until his footsteps faded down the stairs before she scrambled inside, deadbolting the door, chaining it, and dragging her dresser in front of it. She sank to the floor, hyperventilating. He had left. She was alive, but she knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone that this was not an ending. It was a summons. He knew her address. He knew her name. He knew she was a lie. She crawled to her closet, pulling up the loose floorboard beneath her shoes. Her go-bag was still there. Passport fake, but a good one. Cash, a change of clothes. She had to run. Now she slung the bag over her shoulder, dismantled her furniture barricade, and cracked the door open. The hallway was empty. She slipped out, locking the door behind her, and padded softly down the stairs. She reached the ground floor lobby. The rain was lashing against the front glass. She took a deep breath, ready to sprint into the alley and disappear. As she reached for the door, a black sedan identical to the ones from the restaurant pulled up to the curb. The back door opened. Dante Salvatore sat inside, illuminated by the dim glow of the dashboard lights, a phone to his ear. He looked up, his eyes finding hers through the rain-streaked glass. He hadn't left. He had been waiting. He hung up the phone and beckoned her with a single imperious finger. Anna Reed had nowhere left to run. Her life as a waitress was over. Her life as a ghost, it seemed, was too. The ride to Dante's penthouse was silent, a suffocating cocoon of expensive leather and the rhythmic thack-thwack of the windshield wipers. Anna or Ariana. As she was in her own mind, a name she hadn't dared to think in 5 years sat as far from him as possible. Leia was driving Marcus in the passenger seat. She was surrounded. They didn't drive to a warehouse or a dark alley. They drove to the city's newest, most obscene spike of glass and steel, a luxury tower that pierced the skyline. The private elevator bypassed all floors, opening directly into a 2-story cavern of glass marble and cold modern art. The storm raged outside the city lights, a glittering tapestry far below. She was in the lion's den, a gilded, impossibly beautiful cage. "My home," Dante said, shrugging off his coat. He didn't offer to take hers. He walked to the vast bar that dominated one wall and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. "Whiskey. You look like you need it." He pushed one across the marble countertop toward her. She ignored it. "I won't drink with you." "What do you want? Why am I here?" "You're here," Dante said, taking a sip of his own drink. "Because you're a puzzle, and I detest unsolved puzzles in my city. You're a ghost, Anna Reed. You appeared 5 years ago. You have no family, no past, no connections. You work at a high-end restaurant but live in a hovel. And you speak Italian like you were born in the Palazzo Pitti. Explain. I told you. I studied. Stop lying." He snapped the first crack in his cold facade. He slammed the glass down, the sound echoing in the massive room. "It's an insult. You don't get that accent from a college textbook. You get it from a childhood of tutors. You get it from family." He walked toward her, circling her like a shark. "The question is which family? You're not one of mine. You're not a Furlan or a Bianca. You flinched when I mentioned the Genovese family at the restaurant. Why, Ariana's heart leapt into her throat. He hadn't mentioned them. She had flinched at his mention of family in general. Had her reaction been that specific, or was he guessing? "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered. "No," he smiled. "Let's test your art history major." He pointed to a large, chaotic painting on the wall, a splash of reds and blacks. "What's that?" "A minor piece by Cerrone," she replied instantly, her voice tight. "Futurist." He was known for his dark urban landscapes. This one is inferior. Too much emotion, not enough structure. Dante's smile widened. He pointed to a small, classical bronze statue of a man. A copy of Donatello's David. The original is in the Barello in Florence. Ah, yes, Florence. He was close now. Close enough for her to smell the whiskey on his breath and the expensive, sharp scent of his cologne. You know art. You know wine. You know languages. But you don't know how to hide. He tilted his head. I know that look. I've seen it before. It's the look of someone who has lost everything. The look of someone in hiding, usually from people like me. He leaned in, his voice dropping. Here's my problem, Anna. If you're hiding from an enemy of mine, you're a potential ally. But if you're a spy, if you were sent by a rival to get close to me, then you have about 30 seconds to start telling the truth before I have Leo take you to the basement. And we don't have a basement. The threat hung in the air, naked and brutal. Ariana had to make a choice. The lie was dead. The truth. The truth might be the only thing that could save her. But what was the truth? I'm not a spy, she said, her voice shaking but gaining strength. I'm not your enemy. I'm retired. Dante laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Retired from what, you're 25 years old? I am done, she said, her eyes flashing with that same fire from the restaurant. I'm done with men like you, with families, with this. She gestured around the opulent room. I want no part of it. Too late, Dante said. You're in my house. You're part of it. He studied her, his gaze intense. The attraction was there, undeniable and toxic. He was drawn to the fire beneath her mousy exterior. She was the first person in years who hadn't cowed at his feet. She had challenged him. You will stay here, he declared. Marcus is running a deeper search on your face, your voice, everything. We will find out who you are. Until then, you are my guest. Guest or prisoner? The distinction, Dante said, is entirely up to you. Leo will show you to your room. Don't try to leave. The elevator requires my fingerprint. The windows do not open, and I own the air rights. For 3 days, Ariana lived in that penthouse. It was a prison of stunning luxury. She had a room with a view that spanned the entire harbor, a bathroom bigger than her apartment, and a closet filled by the second day with clothes she refused to touch. Silk blouses, tailored pants, cashmere sweaters. She stayed in her waitress uniform, a small act of defiance. She and Dante rarely spoke. They were two predators circling each other. He would sit in his living room taking meetings, his voice a low, commanding murmur on the phone as he moved millions of dollars, and she assumed worse. She would sit by the window, reading from his vast library, pretending to be calm. But the nights were a different story. On the third night, she woke up screaming. The dream was always the same. Smoke, the smell of gasoline, the shouting in Italian, her father Antonio pushing her into the hidden pantry. Noner Ariana, non importer quaquente. Noner, don't come out, Ariana. No matter what you hear, don't come out. She had listened. She had huddled in the dark, her hands over her ears, as she heard the gunshots, as she heard her mother's final, terrible cry. As she smelled the acrid smoke, she awoke, bolt upright, gasping, sweat soaked her bedroom door opened. Dante stood in the frame, silhouetted by the hall light. He was in a t-shirt and sweats, his usual armor gone. What did you call out? He asked, his voice rough with sleep. Nothing, a nightmare. You called out a name, he insisted, walking into the room. He stopped a few feet from her bed. You said Papa, and then you said Vescovi. Ariana's blood evaporated. She felt lightheaded. Visco. She had said the name of the man who had burned her world, her father's capo, the traitor. Dante's face was a mask of sudden dawning comprehension. He stared at her, really stared at her as if a spotlight had just illuminated every hidden corner. "Vesco," he whispered. "Marco Visco, the hyena who took over the Genevieve family." He looked at her again, her fine boned nose, her eyes, her proud bearing. He was connecting dots she hadn't even known were visible. The Genoves family. He breathed. Antonio Geneves. He had a daughter who died in the fire with the rest of them. But her body, it was never found. He reached out his hand, moving slowly as if approaching a feral animal. He brushed the mousy brown hair back from her face. Her natural hair, she realized, was a deep auburn. The dye had been fading. "My God," Dante whispered, a strange, almost reverent look in his eyes. "Ariana, you're Ariana Geneves." The name hung in the air between them, heavy and explosive. Ariana Geneves. A name that meant nothing to Anna Reed, but meant everything in the world they both came from. It was a name of power, of betrayal, and of blood. Ariana's facade, the one she had painstakingly built for 1,026 days, didn't just crack, it disintegrated. The terror, the grief, the rage she had suppressed for 5 years flooded her. She began to shake, not with fear, but with the violent release of her own identity. He killed them," she whispered the words, tearing from her raw throat. "He killed everyone. My father, my mother, my brother, Luca." He set the fire to cover the gunshots. Dante sat on the edge of her bed. He didn't touch her, but his presence was an anchor. The carper was gone, replaced by a man listening with a terrifying intensity. "Tell me," he commanded. But his voice was different, softer. "Tell me everything." And so she did. The story poured out of her, a poisoned torrent. She spoke in Italian, the language of her heart, the language of her trauma. She was Ariana Geneves, the 20-year-old heir to the Genovesi family, a family that had rivaled the Salvatore for decades, though her father Antonio was more businessman than gangster. Their rivalry was one of territory and contracts, not open war. Marco Vescovi was her father's most trusted capo, his right hand. He was Uncle Marco to her. He was the one who taught her to ride a bike. "He wanted it all," she said, her voice hollow, her eyes fixed on the city lights below. "My father was moving us toward legitimacy. He was partnering with Japanese investors." Vesco saw it as weakness. He wanted the old ways, the guns, the drugs, the fear. She recounted the night of the fire. The family was celebrating her acceptance into an art program in Florence. VCO and his men arrived ostensibly for wine. The alarms were disabled. The staff was sent home. My father, he knew. Something in Vesco's eyes. He shoved me into the old bootlegger's pantry behind the wine cellar. He told me not to move. He locked it from the outside. She had sat in the dark, clutching her knees as the sounds of a massacre unfolded. She heard Vescovi screaming at her father, demanding codes, demanding fealty. She heard her father's last defiant words to Seun Verme. "Marco morirà solo. You are a worm, Marco. You will die alone." Then the shots, the silence, the smoke. She had waited for hours long after the sirens had come and gone. She had finally broken the pantry door open, climbing out into the smoking, charred ruins of her home, stepping over the bodies of her family. One of my father's old guards, a man named Petro, found me. He was loyal. He was the only one left. He got me out. He got me to the marshals. He said they were the only ones Vescoy couldn't buy. Pro had been killed 2 months later in a hit and run. She was placed in witness protection, given the name Anna Reed, and dropped in Boston with a warning to never, ever speak Italian again. But Vescovi, he never stopped looking. She finished, tears streaming down her face. He knows I'm alive. He knows I'm the only one who can identify him as the killer. I'm the only one who can challenge his claim to my father's everything. The room was silent, save for her quiet sobs. Dante Salvatore sat for a long time, his expression unreadable. He was processing. The waitress he'd insulted, the ghost he'd been intrigued by, was the lost heir of his family's greatest rival, a woman who, by all rights, should be the donor of the Geneva family. His mind was racing, calculating angles. Marco Vescovi had been a thorn in his side, an unstable, violent force who had disrupted the delicate balance of power. And this woman, Ariana, she was the key. She was also a massive liability. If Visco discovered Dante had her, it was all-out war. "You said Visco is still looking for you," Dante set his voice back to its businesslike rumble. "He has men everywhere. He's paranoid. He knows that as long as I'm alive, his hold is illegitimate. The other families, they only tolerate him because there's no alternative." "There is now," Dante said, standing up. Ariana looked at him, confused. "What, you are the alternative?" "No." She scrambled off the bed. "No, you don't understand. I'm done. I am not Ariana Geneves. She died in that fire. I am Anna Reed. I just want to be left alone." "You will never be left alone," Dante said, his voice flat and hard. "You think Visco will ever stop? You think you can hide forever? You slipped. You spoke Italian to a Mafia boss. You were bound to be found. The only reason you are alive right now is because I found you first." He walked to the window, staring down at the city he owned. "You have 2 choices, Ariana. You can be Anna Reed, the ghost. I can have you on a plane to somewhere new by morning. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder waiting for Vesco's bullet. You'll be running until you die." He turned to face her, his gray eyes pinning her in place. "Or you can be Ariana Geneves. You can stop running. You can stand with me under the protection of the Salvatore name, and we can take back what is yours. We can destroy Marco Vescovi together." Ariana stared at him aghast. "Stand with you? You mean be your porn? You want my name? You want the Genovese territory. I want Visco gone. Dante said he's bad for business. He's a rabid dog. You are the only weapon that can put him down without starting a war with the Commission. You are the legitimate heir. With my backing, you won't just be a survivor. You'll be a queen." The implications of his offer were staggering. He was offering her not just protection, but power. He was offering her revenge. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why would you do this for me? We are rivals." Dante stepped closer, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly. "Our fathers were rivals. That was business. What Visco did, killing women, children, burning a home, that is butchery. It is dishonorable." And besides, he traced the line of her jaw with one finger, a touch that sent a jolt of electricity and fear through her. "I am still the man who insulted you in the restaurant, and you are still the woman who, with a few perfect words, silenced my entire table. I find I am very interested in what else you're capable of." Ariana's life as Anna Reed was a life of fear, a life in the shadows. Dante was offering her a life in the fire. She thought of her father's last words. "You are a worm, Marco. You will die alone." "If I do this," she said, her voice shaking, but finding a new hard edge. "Visi isn't just gone. He's mine." Dante Salvatore smiled. It was the first real smile she had ever seen from him. It was terrifying, and it was beautiful. Now, he said, we speak the same language. The dynamic in the penthouse shifted overnight. Ariana was no longer a prisoner. She was an asset, a partner in a deadly new game. The Anna Reed waitress uniform was burned symbolically by Ariana herself in Dante's massive fireplace. The clothes he had bought for her, she now wore. They were armor black silk blouses, sharp-shouldered blazers, and leather boots. Her hair was cut and styled, the mousy brown dye stripped away to reveal the rich, fiery Orbine of her Geniov's heritage. She was Ariana again, and she was terrifying. Dante's consigliere Marcus was appalled. "Dante, she's a Genovese," he argued in one of the few times Ariana saw him raise his voice. They were in Dante's office, and Ariana was standing right there. "You're bringing her in. You're trusting her. It's madness. The commission will never stand for it. And Vesco, if he finds out, he'll burn this city to the ground to get to her. Let him try," Dante said, not looking up from a ledger. "She's a liability," Marcus insisted. "She is an opportunity," Ariana said, her voice cutting through the argument. Both men looked at her. "Marcus, you think Vesco isn't already a problem? He's unpredictable. He's skimming from the neutral ports. He's dealing outside his territory. He's breaking every rule your commissioner holds dear, but no one can prove it." She tapped a file on Dante's desk. "I can. I know his accountants. I know his safe houses. I know the men he trusts. He's not a carpo. He's a butcher. And I am the only one left who can bear witness." Marcus stared at her, stunned by her audacity. Dante merely looked amused. "She stays, Marcus. Dante said she's under my protection. That means she is under Salvatore protection. Spread the word. She is not to be touched." The training began. It wasn't physical. It was strategic. For weeks, Dante and Ariana spent their nights in his office, a bottle of wine between them, mapping out Vesco's entire organization. She resurrected her family's old contacts, the ones who had gone to ground. He gave her access to his intelligence. The attraction between them was a taut wire. It was not a soft romance. It was a connection forged in shared trauma and a thirst for power. It was the brush of his hand as he passed her a file. The way his eyes lingered on her when she correctly predicted a rival's move, the late-night glasses of whiskey, where she told him about her father, and he, in a rare moment, told her about his. "My father was old school," he'd said, staring into the fire. "He believed in honor, but honor doesn't win wars. Strength does. He was killed by a car bomb planted by a small-time rival he'd dishonored by refusing to meet him. I was 22. I found the rival. I found his entire family. And I taught them what real dishonor looked like. Vesovi is from that same mold, a dog that bites the hand that feeds. And I'm the dog that bites back," Ariana murmured. He looked at her, his gray eyes dark. You are a true Genovese. Your father would be proud." The words hit her harder than a physical blow. It was a validation she hadn't known she craved. The first test of their alliance came a month after her unveiling. Vesco had requested a meeting with Dante. The neutral territory, the waterfront. Vesco was getting nervous. He'd heard whispers that Dante was making moves on the old Genovese turf, and he wanted to issue a warning. "I'm coming," Ariana said. "Absolutely not." Dante said, "It's a high-risk meet. You are the one thing he can't see. and that is why I have to be there. He won't try anything in the open, but he'll have a sniper. He always does. I know where he'd put him." She pointed to a map of the shipyard. "There, the old crane on Pier 12. It has a perfect view of the meeting spot, but it's shielded from the street. He used it twice before." Dante argued, but her logic was flawless. She knew the enemy's playbook because she had watched him write it. They went Dante, Marcus, and 4 shadows. Ariana was disguised wearing a cap and jacket, posing as a driver, staying 50 yards back with Leo, Dante's most trusted bodyguard. The meeting happened just as she'd predicted. Vesvi, fat and pining in a gaudy suit, emerged from his car flanked by his own men. He and Dante spoke, their voices lost to the wind. Ariana scanned Pier 12. There she whispered to Leo, pointing top of the crane. "See it?" The glint. Leo raised a small pair of binoculars. "I see him." He keyed his radio. "Sniper crane, Pier 12, northeast." 2 of Dante's men, already in position, moved in. 2 quick, silenced shots echoed faintly over the water. At the meeting spot, Dante didn't even flinch. Vesco's face, however, went pale. He had heard the report in his own earpiece. His sniper was gone. Dante had known. The meeting ended abruptly. Bisi scrambled back into his car. Dante walked back to his own, his face a calm mask. He got into the back seat where Ariana was now waiting. He looked at her, then at Leo in the front seat. "Good call," Dante said to Ariana. "He'll be suspicious," she replied. "He knows you had intelligence you shouldn't have." "Let him be," Dante said. "He knows I have a new weapon. He just doesn't know it's you." That night, the tension between them finally broke. They were in the penthouse, high on adrenaline. "You saved my life tonight," he said. "It was a business decision," she replied, her voice shaky. "You're no good to me, Dad." He laughed, a real, unguarded sound. He stepped in front of her, cornering her against the glass wall overlooking the city. "Keep lying, Ariana. It's almost as convincing as your Waitress act." He put a hand on the glass by her head, his body caging hers. "You feel this, I know you do. This alliance. It's dangerous," she whispered, her heart hammering. "Everything worth having is," he murmured. He leaned in and kissed her. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a clash of power, a desperate, angry claiming. It was 5 years of her repressed fire meeting his lifetime of cold control. It was a seal on their bargain, signed in shadow and sealed with a touch. When he pulled back, they were both breathing heavily. "Vesco isn't the only one who's suspicious," he said, his voice low. "The attempt on my life tonight. It was too clean. His sniper was good, but my men knew exactly where to go. Someone on my side, they're feeding him." Ariana's blood ran cold. A traitor. Not in her family this time. In his. The hunt for the traitor consumed Dante. He was methodical, ruthless, and paranoid. Every man in his organization was scrutinized. For Ariana, it was a terrifying echo of her past. She saw the same shadows, the same whispers that had preceded her family's fall. "It has to be someone close," she insisted as they reviewed security logs in his office. "Vesco knew where you'd be, Dante. He didn't just know when. He knew the exact meeting spot. Only 3 people knew that. You, me, and Marcus." Dante's eyes narrowed. "Marcus, he's your conciliary," Ariana argued, pacing. "But he's the one who wanted me gone. He told you to hand me over to Visco. What if he tried to expedite the process?" Dante shook his head, but a seed of doubt was planted. "Marcus has been with my family for 30 years. He served my father, and Vescovi served mine." Ariana counted, her voice ice. "Loyalty is a luxury, Dante. Don't forget that." Dante didn't want to believe it, But he couldn't ignore the logic. He devised a test, a trap. He called a meeting with Marcus. "I'm moving Ariana," he said, his voice clipped. "She's a liability here. Vesco is getting too close. I'm sending her to the old safe house by the quarry tonight. Just me and 2 men. Marcus nodded, his face impassive. "A wise decision, Capo. She's been a distraction. See that the details of the move stay between us," Dante ordered. "Of course," Marcus said. That night, Dante and Ariana prepared for a war. "You are not the bait," Dante told her, loading a handgun and pressing it into her hand. She took it, her hand steady. "You'll be in the bunker below the house. Leo will be with you. He's the only one I trust with my life." Ariana looked at Leo, the stoic, polite bodyguard who had walked her home that first night. He had been her constant shadow for weeks, respectful and silent. He nodded at her, his face calm. "I will be upstairs with my men," Dante continued. "When Vesco's team hits the house, they'll expect to find you. They'll find me instead. And Marcus. We'll see which side he's on." The quarry safe house was a concrete and steel box nestled in the woods miles outside the city. It was cold and damp. Ariana and Leo descended into the small, hidden bunker in the basement, a room reinforced with steel. "Stay here, Mom." Leo said, his voice the same polite monotone as always. "I'll be at the top of the stairs." "Leo," Ariana said, "thank you for everything. Just doing my job, ma'am." He smiled faintly and shut the heavy steel door. Ariana sat in the dark, the gun heavy in her lap, her ears straining. For an hour, there was nothing. Then the silence was shattered. Gunfire, a storm of it from upstairs, automatic weapons shouting. The house was under attack. Dante's trap had been sprung. She heard men storming the house, heard Dante's voice shouting orders, heard the heavy thud of a body hitting the floor above her. Then a new sound. Someone at the bunker door. "Mom, Ariana!" It was Lau's voice. "We have to go. They're breaching the basement." She ran to the door as he unbolted it. He pulled her out. The basement was filled with smoke. "Dante," she gasped. "He's holding them off. We have to use the escape tunnel this way." He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a dark opening in the far wall. She followed, her heart pounding. They were in a narrow, dirt-walled tunnel. "Hurry!" he urged. But something was wrong. Ariana stopped. "Low the gunfire." It stopped. "They're reloading. Dante's dead. We have to move." He tugged her arm harder this time. "No," Ariana said, her blood turning to ice. She pulled her arm free. It stopped too suddenly. All at once, it was clean. She looked at him. Really looked at him. His polite face, his calm eyes. He wasn't even sweating. He wasn't breathing hard. "Leo," she whispered, her hand going to the gun in her waistband. Where is Dante? Leo's polite mask dissolved. The smile that replaced it was not his. It was a sneer of pure, venomous hatred. "The Carpo," he spat, "is busy. He's about to find his consigliere dead in the woods, a tragic casualty of Visco's attack." So sad. Ariana's mind reeled. "Marcus. You killed Marcus." "No, I killed the men Visco sent. And then I shot Marcus. Dante thinks Marcus was the traitor. He'll be so grateful to me for saving him. He'll be distracted while I deliver you." The betrayal was so vast, so profound, it stole her breath. "It was you. It was always you at the restaurant. You were the one who heard me. You were the one who told Vesco. Not just Vesco," Principe Lao mocked, stepping toward her. "Vesco is an idiot. He's just the client. I was the one who placed the car bomb for Dante's father all those years ago. I've been a plant in the Salvatore family for 25 years. He worked for the real power, the ones who had wanted Dante's father gone, the ones who wanted the Genovese family gone. He was a ghost, a master of betrayal. And I, he said, pulling his own gun, was the one who lit the match at your father's house. The world collapsed. The man who had walked her home, who had guarded her, who she had trusted, he was the one, the man who had set the fire. The man who had heard her mother scream. A primal scream of rage tore from Ariana's throat. She lunged, not with the gun, but with her hands clawing at his face, a raw, feral attack. He was stronger. He hit her a brutal backhand that sent her sprawling to the dirt floor. He raised his gun. "Goodbye, Ariana. Tell your father I said hello." A single shot exploded in the tunnel. Leo froze. A red stain blossomed on his chest. He looked down confused, then crumpled. Behind him, limping his arm, bleeding heavily, stood Dante. His face was a mask of thunder. "I heard the shot," he said, his voice a low growl. "The one you used on Marcus. It was your gun, not theirs." He had known. The trap wasn't for Marcus. It was for Leo. Dante Ariana sobbed, crawling toward him. "Marcus is alive!" Dante rasped, clutching his bleeding arm. The vest caught it. He's loyal." He looked down at Leo's body. "This snake, he's been with me since I was a boy." He killed them, Dante." Ariana whispered, clutching his shirt. "He was the one. He set the fire." Dante's face, which she had only ever seen as cold or intrigued, filled with a new, terrifying emotion, pure, unadulterated rage. He understood this was the man who had created the ghost he'd found. Suddenly, a phone rang. It was Leo's. Dante picked it up from the dead man's pocket. The caller ID was Vescoy. Dante answered his voice, a low, deadly calm. "He can't come to the phone right now, Dante," Salvatore said. The line was silent. Then Marco Visco's sputtering voice. "Salvatore. What? Where is he? Where is the girl? She's right here," Dante said, pulling Ariana to her feet, holding her close. "And she's very, very angry. We've been wanting to thank you, Marco, for sending us the man who murdered her family. It saved us the trouble of hunting him." You lie!" "Old Genovese shipyard," Dante said by the docks. 1 hour. Come get what's left of your man, and bring everyone because I'm going to burn your entire world to the ground, just like you did to hers." He crushed the phone, ending the call. He looked at Ariana. The time for hiding was over. The time for games was over. "This ends tonight," he said. "This ends," she corrected, wiping the blood from her lip. Her eyes burning with a 5-year-old fire, with my hands on his throat. The Geneve's shipyard, Vesco's stolen throne room, was a fortress. But it was a fortress Ariana knew intimately. As Dante's main force launched a loud, fiery assault on the main gates, drawing Vescovi's army into a firefight, a different war was being waged in the shadows. Ariana Dante and a loyal Marcus slipped into the icy bay and entered the old smuggling tunnels her father had built. They emerged silent as death into the wine cellar, the battle raging above. Ariana led them up a hidden staircase, emerging directly into the main warehouse. Visco was there, pacing and screaming into a phone. "Kill Salvatore and find the girl." Before Dante could move, Ariana stepped into the light. "Hello, Uncle Marco," she said, her voice echoing in the cavernous room. Visco spun his face, turning a ghostly white. He stared as if he'd seen a ghost. "Ariana!" "No, you're dead. I saw the flames." "You saw what you wanted to see," she said, advancing on him. Dante and Marcus fanned out their silenced weapons, neutralizing Vesco's personal guards in a single fluid motion. "You disgrace your father!" Vesco shrieked, fumbling for his own gun. Sleeping with the Salvatore. You dare speak his name? She roared. You ate at his table and shot him in his home. You are a worm, Marco, and you will die alone. As he raised his gun, a single shot from Dante's pistol tore through Vesco's shoulder, sending him to his knees. Dante leveled his gun for the killing blow. Wait, Ariana commanded. She looked at the pathetic, bleeding man who had haunted her. Killing him was an execution, not justice. No, she said, her voice clear. You won't die. You'll rot. Dante, call the real police. Dante stared. Then a slow smile of pure admiration spread across his face. He nodded to Marcus. Tell them they'll find a murderer here. As distant sirens wailed, Dante took her arm. Let's go. We leave through the tunnels. He's a present from a ghost. 6 months later, Boston's underworld was unrecognizable. It was stable. It was quiet. And it was run by 2 rulers. The Salvatore family and the reborn Genovese family were no longer rivals. They were a unified force. Marco Vescoy, thanks to Ariana's testimony delivered via a shielded witness program Dante had arranged, was serving 5 consecutive life sentences in a supermax prison. He would, as her father had predicted, die alone. Ariana, with Dante's backing, had reclaimed her father's entire estate, but she didn't just rebuild his empire. She transformed it. She cut out the rot, legitimized the businesses, and wielded her power with a precision that was both respected and feared. The Trattoria Caruso was now her private dining room. She sat at table 12, the same table where she had been insulted sipping a Brunel, but she was not in a waitress uniform. She wore a dark green silk dress that matched her eyes, and her auburn hair fell in waves. The door opened. Dante Salvatore entered. Her staff all respectfully nodded. Mr. Salvatore. He walked to the table and sat opposite her. He looked tired, but he smiled when he saw her. Long day, capo? She asked, a teasing lilt in her voice. Long day, Donna, he countered, accepting the glass of wine she poured for him. His hand brushed hers. The current was still there, a constant low-voltage hum. The last of Vesco's men folded today, he reported. The ports are clean. Our partnership controls the entire coastline from here to Providence. Good. She said, my Japanese investors from my Father's Day are back. They're meeting us next week. They are very interested in a legitimate shipping alliance. He watched her, his gray eyes full of an emotion she now understood was not just passion, but awe. You've done it, he said. In 6 months you rebuilt a kingdom from ashes. We rebuilt it, she corrected. The Continella and the Capo. Quite a team. He reached across the table, taking her hand. His thumb traced the small, faint scar on her knuckle from where Leo had hit her. I never intended for any of this, Ariana, he said, his voice sincere. That night I was just an arrogant fool impressed by a pretty girl who spoke my language. And I, she said, turning her hand to grip his, was just a ghost looking for a place to rest. And now, Ariana smiled, a true brilliant smile that lit up her entire face. Now I am the fire, and this, she said, gesturing to the city outside the city that was theirs, is my home. Dante raised his glass. To the clumsy servant girl, she raised hers, and to the boss who was smart enough to sit down and listen. They drank, their eyes locked, a silent promise passing between them. The war was over. The rain had just begun. And so the waitress who was once a ghost, and the Mafia boss who was once her enemy, rewrote the rules of their world. They learned that the most powerful alliances are not forged in peace, but in fire, and that the words we use have the power to unmask a king or crown a queen. Anna Reed was a memory, but Ariana Genovese, with Dante Salvatore by her side, was a legend. Theirs was not a simple romance. It was an empire built on the ashes of the past. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this tale of revenge romance and karmic justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to share this with someone else who loves a story where the underestimated protagonist finally gets their crown. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another dramatic story. We have new recordings every